Hey everybody, welcome back to Me 101. I'm your host Nick 101, and how's it going, MFs? MF, of course, meaning my friends. It's it's silly, kind of cute little joke that I picked up from work. I saw it in an email. It was just like, "Hey MFs." I was just like, "Oh, isn't that nice?" Well, it's an internal email, so obviously, it's not a big deal. It's not like any clients are going to see. And then she revealed that it actually stood for my friends. She's like, "What? What'd you think it meant?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a good joke. Now it's on you if you thought it was something inappropriate." So MFs, maybe I'll start using that to sign on. But yeah, anyway. So it is what June 7th, 2021, and had an okay weekend. Did a little overtime on Saturday, and then my girl uh, met me at work once the shift was over, so that we could go out. So I just did like a half shift. So got out at 12. So we went to go get some lunch. There's a deli that I wanted to take her to that we oftentimes order from work, but it was just super crowded, and the outdoor dining was just directly into the sunlight. So we just decided to maybe come back another day. I did pop inside and grab a cookie real quick. But then we decided to go further into town to this Mexican restaurant. Now, when I was in Tucson, as you can imagine, the Mexican restaurant scene is just out of this world. A lot of authentic, Mexican food. So when I moved back to the Northeast, it's hard to find a good place. So luckily, where I previously worked, right across the street, was a really decent one. And I'm very happy to say that we found a second option that's a little closer to where my new work is. So no matter which direction we're going from home, then we have a Mexican, restaurant option. And we did the outdoor dining. They had nice big umbrella, and it was nice. We've been ordering from restaurants during the whole pandy for takeout as best as we can, just to keep the businesses that we like, afloat. But this was, I think, the first time in over a year that we were able to actually sit down and eat, and it was just a really pleasant experience. I'm I'm glad that we took the time to try and get better about cooking for ourselves and eating healthier, and cutting out sodium and fat, and not fat, but sodium and sugar, and all of that is what I meant to say. But it it's nice to treat yourself every once in a while, have somebody else cook it and bring it to you, and the and chat to other people at other tables. Like, for instance, there's this older couple across the way, and anytime, you can't take me anywhere, especially when it comes to food. At one point, inevitably, I'm going to just drop something on my shirt, and I did. And the old guy made a comment. I can't remember what, something like, oh, can't take you anywhere, or I can't remember what it was, but it was all good natured. I can laugh at myself. So that struck up a whole conversation, and you know, after we ate, oh yeah, the food was incredible. So like, just the pictures on the menu were just so appetizing that I wanted to order like three different types of chicken. I ended up with the arroz de pollo. She got the pollo con crema, and I can't. There was a third one that we were both eyeing, but we ended up getting the other two. So it's something to look forward to when we go back. But there's a third chicken dish that's escaping me at the moment. But um, this is one of those few times where they bring the plate out. Huge plate, by the way. I mean, the food seemed a little expensive, but then when I saw the portions, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be 2 meals easy, so I get it. They brought out the plate, and it actually looked as good as it did in the picture. Like, I'm so used to fast food chains, getting a professional photographer to make a fake burger where you wouldn't actually want to eat it. Like, the lettuce isn't actual lettuce. The ketchup is just strategically squirted in certain areas. The patty's thicker than you'd ever get in real life, and when you get the squashed thing, it ends up just being an utter disappointment compared to what you see on the menu. And it's something that we've all come to expect and just you know just be okay with. Now, this food looked as incredible as it did on the menu, but that doesn't compare to taste. So how's the taste? Well, here's the only issue. it tasted salty, and that's the only because it would never have tasted too salty, except for the fact that we've cut out sodium so much that it was obvious that there had been quite a bit of salt in there, which was fine. I mean, salt does taste good, and we were going to be walking out in the hot sun anyway, so we figured we'd sweat a bit of that out. And that's what we did. So afterwards, we went for a walk, down the way, and just it was just really cool, kind of seeing things look like they normally do. Now, it's funny because I hate people, I hate crowds of people, and I like individual persons, but I just am not a huge fan of big crowds of people. Um, usually there's just rude yelling people not moving out of the way so that you have to go off of the cross off of the sidewalk in order to even get around them. All the good seats are taken, like an entire picnic table will be taken up by two people, every time. And I just hated it, but it was kind of nice, especially because the area is big enough that we could easily stay a decent amount away from people if we wanted to. And then at other times, there'd be other people with their dog, and would be like, "Oh, are they friendly? Can they say hi?" And the dogs would sniff, and then we talk to the other person about their dog. That's the thing I love about bringing a dog. If you're in the chatty mood, is because it is if you come across a fellow dog lover, well, immediately you know that you have something in common you can talk about. You know that they are a decent, somewhat empathetic person because they can care for something that can't actually speak to them besides the occasional bark on command. And that was really nice. So Lila was able to get a lot of interaction with both people and dogs. Did pretty decent. It was the first time being able to be in a group like that in, well, over a year. So obviously she was a little excited. Did try to jump up occasionally, but not too bad. So that was nice. And then yesterday was the hottest day it's been so far this summer. So we tried to take it relatively easy, especially because Sunday was my only day off. Well, I mean, technically I got Memorial Day off, which was nice. That was actually really nice. I wasn't expecting. Um, I work in retail. I've always expected to work Memorial Day, but in this case, it's kind of nice being a vet and actually being able to observe the holiday by taking it easy. And so I technically still worked 5 days. One of them was a half. Saturday was a half day, but yeah, Sunday was my only day off of the weekend. So I'm already spoiled. It's only been a couple months since I've been working there. I've never been able to have an entire weekend off unless I asked for vacation because I always worked retail. And now I've gotten spoiled where I'm like, oh, it was only one day this time, and it's just like, yeah, one day. I mean, anyway, so I missed having the half the Saturday, so we just kind of took it nice and easy. Um, if you're a fan of the cast or even just me as a person, you already know that we like to play some cribbage out on the porch when it's cool enough. Our downstairs is a lot cooler than upstairs, so thankfully we got in the shade on the porch, cool enough to be able to play on the porch. But in order to do that, we had to go swimming first. So we're pretty close to a lake that we can jump in and out of, and of course Lulu is just a water dog. So we did that, and it was kind of crowded on the beach for my taste, so I just kind of wanted to pop in and out. Plus, they have that rule of like no dogs allowed on the beach. That it's not enforced, but there could always be one of the members of the community that's there that is just like, hey, rules is rules. So we made sure that there's a sandy part and a grassy part. So we made sure to be kind of away from the main sandy beach part area and be over on the grass off to the side. And if they had the floaties deployed for the swimming area, which they really should, I mean it's it's at that point where it's warm, people are getting in the water, and jet skis and boats are going by, and it's nice to just have an area where you know that you're safe. But that wasn't up, but that's where we would have gone. It's just outside of the buoys, so that we're not technically on the beach. But surprisingly, she did not want to go in for very long. Like she went in, swam around, and then was immediately starting to go out again. And I was like, you know what? I just was here for a quick cool down too. So my girl stayed in for a little bit longer while Lilo and I, toweled off. I was kind of surprised. I didn't notice anything else untoward. And then this morning she was acting kind of weird, where she walked for a bit, and then all of a sudden turn around super quick, like something was biting her on her butt. And I know that now is the season for biting flies and also mosquitoes, so I figured it was one of them going after her sphincter. And I didn't think much of it. You know, she always is weird anyway, so I just figured this was just a different quirk where it's just, yeah, biting bugs. I mean, hopefully that stressful collar's killing them, but anyway. Then when she went to let her out at lunchtime, she was like, oh my god, her tail, which normally does, the straight up thing, is bent downward, completely unlike her. I tried to look at it. She's acting very defensive, like it hurts her. So she was worried that somehow she might have broken her tail. Now, this has always been a very real possibility with her because I have the type of truck that has the half backward swinging door, so you can get into that tiny, cramped little compartment behind it, and that's where she goes. So she'll get in, sit down, and I swear to God, her tail always seems to want to angle towards where it would get shut in the door if she could help it. So it's something I always watch for. So I knew for a fact that isn't what happened. But the more I'm thinking about it, I was just like, are you 1,000% sure? I mean, 1,000%. You know what I mean? 100%. Numbers don't mean anything on the podcast. Uh, so, are you just, absolutely, without a doubt, sure that as you went to shut it, that her tail didn't suddenly go back to where it had originally been? I was like, no, I can't honestly say. I assume that she would have cried out in pain, but here's the thing. The last time that she got severely hurt, she didn't. Last time she got really badly hurt, she had unsheathed her nail because the porch that she, was walking down was just a metal grate kind of porch. Apparently, her nail was a little too long. It got caught. She kept on walking. It pulled it off, and she never made a sound. She never went, "Yay! What the heck happened to my paw? Pull it away! Oh my God, what happened?" She never made that sound. I just noticed that she was leaving dark marks in the sand, and then I was like, "Oh, for crying out loud! Let me look. Yep, it's bloody. Dang it, it's bloody and dirty." So she never made a sound that whole time, and it clearly hurt her. For the rest of the trip, when we had to bandage it up, she was hobbling on one leg. She wouldn't put down the other foot, and so it was clearly bugging her, but never a peep from her. So I was like, oh my god, So my girl's calling me at work, like panicking that she's severely injured, that we have to take her to the vet, and so I'm like, oh god, I don't know. She might have been, and I might have closed her tail on the door and never noticed because she didn't make out a yelp. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a look when I get home. I'll take her to the vet if we need to. And so when I have a little free time at work, I Google you know you know broken tail, that kind of stuff, and eventually I find something called limber tail. So I might do an entire episode about just besides the obvious stuff like cancer and other things that can happen to a dog, common ailments that you know that happened that you might not have heard of. So, for instance, never even knew that was a thing, being able to unsheath a nail. But it had all the raw exposed stuff on the underside. The cap had come off, and it just looked so painful. And it probably looked as painful as it was, but never heard of an unsheathed nail. So I've never heard of limber tail. So I might as well tell you guys because it might save you a trip to the vet. Now, here's the thing. I never recommend not going to the vet because that was a huge pet peeve when I was working at the pet store. It would always be something like, hey, my dog has this horrible skin condition. Would you look at that? And I would be like, okay, well, that's bad enough that first of all, vet. Absolutely vet. Take him to the vet. Second, a lot of times skin conditions you'd think would be an external cause, but a lot of times it's internal. So we might want to talk about switching the food and seeing if it's a food allergy. So we can get you a limited ingredient diet, a completely different main meat source, wean them off of that, wean them on the other one, maybe even supplement with some fish oil, and maybe that's the reason how come their skin's so bad. And, so definitely vet, definitely think about, narrowing down if it's actually a allergen to something that they're ingesting. And in the meantime, there is the spray that can temporarily soothe it, just as, like basically putting a Band-Aid on something that needs stitches. And invariably, they would always grab the spray, not talk about food, walk off, and you knew for a fact that they were not going to the vet. So please, 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 don't put off even though you think it might be an expensive bill, if you really think that the dog is severely, hurt or sick or whatever, don't try and find a cheap ass solution. But having said that, the more I'm researching and looking at pictures of what she just had described, the fact that limber tail comes from swimming, the tail will droop. It's not a break, it's just a sprain. There's literally nothing you can do about it except for having them take it easy, keeping them comfortable, and that's about it. So I get home, I check it out. She is able to raise it when she pees, so it isn't an actual like clean break. So all signs point to it being limber tail, but it's recommended that you observe them for a week. It should start to get better by then. If it doesn't, then it might be a break, and definitely go to the vet by that point. But everything that I read suggested do a wait and see, which is something I normally would never recommend. Again, I want to be very clear on this, but whew, thankfully it looks like it was just limber tail, and maybe some buffered aspirin to help with the pain, and that's really kind of about all we can do. So never having heard of that, had I been the one to notice it and gone into panic mode and not done a little bit of research first, I might have been like panicky, let's take her to the vet right now as well. So, limbertail, in case you've never heard of it, there's your little factoid of the day. But yeah, I definitely think that it's not a bad idea to maybe do an entire episode on, um, different things that can affect them that you might not have even ever heard of. But yeah, who knew? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there watching that are like, I've heard of that. Like, what? You never had a dog that went swimming before? Never had a dog that hurt their tail from less than 2 minutes of swimming, which is something that they have done for an entire week straight practically. When we do a vacation at the island, she's off leash. Like she's in and out of the water literally all day, and never had an issue before. So I don't know. Maybe it's because she hasn't been able to do swimming in about a year. So she pulled something because she hasn't been working that particular muscle out. Besides, maybe it's a different muscle from the wagging muscle. Maybe it's more of an up and down one when they swim. I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen any prolonged videos of dogs underwater when they're swimming. I think the only thing that I've ever seen is a dog from above when they're swimming. Video of a dog doing something cute while they're swimming, or a freeze frame photo of a dog jumping into the water and then getting it timed perfectly. Can't remember who does that because I think that there was one person that started it. I don't even know if they patented it, but I just remember this entire calendar of dogs, like with their face like all being blown back from the water, like almost getting the ball, just the eyes like wide because of everything's going back from the impact of the water. Hilarious stuff. Some of my favorite pictures, to be honest. And yeah, if you have a dog that swims and you think that they might have hurt their tail somehow, could possibly be a limber tail. So that was that. Good times though. It's nice to be able to get outside. I've always been a hermit, but I've also enjoyed my time outdoors as well. It just depends on the activity. My girl likes to hike. Actually, both my girls like to hike, Lulu and stuff. But I'm not a huge fan because I'm sorry, but walking is just more of a chore for me. It's like it's almost but not quite exercise. The scenery doesn't change fast enough for me. It's like if possible, could we just go biking instead? Because now I feel like it's more of a workout. And I feel like the scenery comes up a lot faster, and if it's beautiful enough scenery that you actually want to like pull the bike over and park it, that's fine. But hiking always seemed tedious to me. Now that's different from from climbing, or I mean not climbing like rock climbing. Look at these arms. I'm not rock climbing anywhere, but like kind of like going up rocks or particularly hilly terrain, that's a little bit more like it because I like feeling a little bit like a mountain goat where, you got to be careful where you're putting your feet. It does feel more like work, going up and going down. Going down actually is, slap, slap, slap. Sometimes even more painful on the old knees than going up the hill is, which, you'd think that that'd be the easier way of doing it if you've never hiked in your entire life. But no, it definitely is easier going up than down, at least on the joints. So, yeah, never been a huge fan of hiking, but other outdoor stuff like swimming, I've always been a huge swimmer. And so it was interesting that I was almost reluctant yesterday. It was so hot that I was like, I'd rather just do nothing and try and stay cool than to do all the, changing into an outfit, getting there, swimming, drying off, laying towels down, coming back, changing out of the stuff before you start getting, a rash on your butt from the bathing suit. So it almost seemed like more of a chore, which is funny because it's like, no, 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 dude, you used to be a fish. Like, what's going on? And this time I did. I only just, did a quick dip. Lila looked like she was done, so I was just like, you know what, I kind of am too. I feel cool now. That was the main reason why I did it. And the water was beautiful too, so I'm very surprised. But I don't know, it's kind of similar to how I don't really ski that much anymore. I don't I don't know why I kind of fell out of the habit. It was something that I used to absolutely love doing, and now, you know what? No, screw it. Like, I want to do it again soon because it's that one. That one's a little less like riding a bike. When you haven't been skiing in over a decade, it definitely takes a little bit to get your ski legs back. I guess horrible pun. Ski legs, whatever. I'm keeping it in. But anyway, I definitely don't want to fall into that thing where you start to feel depressed because you're like, well, nothing I do brings me the same joy anymore as it did when I was a kid. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, first of all, doing the same thing that you don't have that excitement of it being a first time thing. You don't have the excitement of, getting better at it, conquering it, bettering yourself, bettering your craft. So, yeah, obviously it's not going to be as much unless keep on going out and trying even new, wild, and wackier things, which most of us don't. We usually find one or five things that we enjoy and just kind of stick with that, and then we seem to lose interest in it after a while. And it's like, well, of course, that's not how interests really work. I mean, anyway, unless you're the type that is just like gets so obsessed with a thing that that's all you want to do all day, every day. Until you're the best in the world at it, and the people that do that, honestly, if that's how you're built, more power to you, and that's awesome, and that's why we have, crazy videos and events and all that stuff. So more power to you. Um, but Reddit, real quick, can can you that blurring thing? All right, so if you're on Reddit, it'll blur a picture because it'll say not safe for work, whether it be because of an injury, because of it's sexually inappropriate, and what's hilarious is that I think about half of the ones that you click on that say not safe for work, it's really just a drawing of a busty character, like completely covered character, and it says not safe for work. I'm just like, okay, that's like PG 13 at most. So, how about instead of those ones, how about you do heights? Because all of these people that are parkouring on like towers and tall buildings, and they have the helmet cam on, and it looks like at any minute, they could. Those things just make my heart start racing and my hands start sweating just watching those videos. It's like, could you give me a heads up, because otherwise it just starts auto playing as you're scrolling down. You're just like, oh geez, if I'm in the mood for it, I want to watch it, but if I'm not, I don't want to see it at all. So just a suggestion out there. Those high up videos, man. There's something about them. They just that's one thing that gives me some anxiety, I guess you could say. So, but yeah. So good times, and it. I mean, I've already said it before, but it's a game changer being able to have weekend off with my girl. It was funny too having Monday off together at the same time. I was just like, oh, this might be the first time since I started a new job where we actually have a day off opposite, which I think is kind of important too. They definitely say, it it's not the best. I mean, so there's a handful of people in the world that probably make it work, but it's like if if you work with your partner and you have the same hours, you go home and then you spend all day at home with your partner. If you go to the same place on the weekends, if you don't spend any away time from each other, the absence makes the heart go fonder is true up to a point. Obviously, long distance relationships are really hard to maintain because too much absence, and it's like, well, I'm not getting enough from said thing, but you definitely there should be days where you go f off, um, and do something. And I know that that's where the conversation starts to get tough because it's just like you know obviously when you're in a long term relationship, my friends become her friends. So if I'm hanging out with my friends, obviously she's going to want to hang out with what are now her friends as well. So um, it might be an awkward conversation if done wrong. To be like, hey, I want to go, do thing. and not have them be like, oh, so you don't want me to come. So, just try and have an open conversation and, communicate about where, hey, every once in a while we should definitely probably do stuff without the other. So we actually have something to catch each other up on. I mean, like, me and her don't work at the same work. So we can come home, how's your day? And I know it drives you crazy. I mean, I know she's not watching this, but if you are, I know it drives you crazy. But that how's work? And it's just like it was fine. I mean, I do data entry. A lot of it, is pretty repetitive and not really that interesting. I mean, honestly, the most I might be able to pull out of today was the fact that oh, MF, isn't that cute? She did it to me and my friends, and was hoping that somebody would call her out on it, so she could be like, hey, MF in the email, and then she'd be like, yeah, my friend, what did you think it meant? And nobody did, so she had to initiate it. I feel bad. I should have said something. But, that's probably, going to be the most that I, can get out of the day, or it's like, I've been trying to be good about, I have this little personal crock pot that, at break time, at around, like, 9:45, I throw my lunch into there, and then by noon, it's nice and piping hot to eat. And it's been a game changer because I've been trying to cut out microwaving stuff in plastic because that's pretty much the only thing I used to microwave stuff out of. I would put, we would make dinner, put the extras in a Tupperware, take those to lunch, take the lid off the Tupperware, throw it in the microwave, and then eat it out of the Tupperware. Bada bing, bada boom. And then, I saw that you really shouldn't microwave stuff in anything other than like ceramic or glass, something that's not going to transfer. The plastics, it's definitely not healthy, especially as a cumulative effect. So like today, um, first day back of the week, so break comes and goes, and I realize getting close to lunch, I'm like, crap, I didn't do the crock pot thing. I mean, like little boring things like that are usually what takes up most of the day outside of the literal data entry, which that's even worse than the incidental stuff on the I mean like that's like watching grass grow. I'll use those stories to put her to sleep at at bedtime if she's still feeling too awake. So and it's fine. I mean, it's just because a job uh, isn't great for a story at a party doesn't mean that it isn't a perfectly fine job. I mean, this isn't one where I feel like, oh, what am I doing with my life? This is horrible. I can't stand it. I mean, the people I work with are great. The work's fine. It keeps me busy. It makes the day go by fast. I mean, it's unless you find a job that you absolutely like, you're doing something that you absolutely love. I mean, there's not much more you can ask for. It pays fine, the work's fine, the people are fine. I mean, like the commute's fine. All of it's fine. I mean, I I almost would argue that can arguably be sometimes better than working on something that you actually love to do as a hobby. Because sometimes then when it becomes work, now you don't even like to do the thing because now it's an obligation. Now this is actually what you need to do instead of what you like to do when you aren't doing the thing that you need to do. Does that make any sense at all? Regardless, yeah. So I'm fine with having a fine job. It keeps me fed, it keeps me busy, and then yeah, and the hours are decent enough that I have plenty of time to do other stuff that I love. I can get home with plenty of time to throw out a podcast episode before my girl comes home and we want to start making dinner and hanging out with each other. Uh, you know, it gives us the weekends off so we can go kayaking or any of the stuff that we want to do together we can do. And it's just nice because now that Josh is come and gone. Still debating on putting out that episode, by the way, just cause I mostly just did it for funsies. It doesn't necessarily need to be public, but anyway, now that Josh is come and gone, and I don't know that we're gonna be having company for a while. It's like, we tried to get the house so that we wouldn't be embarrassed if somebody stopped by to visit, and I think that we get to that point. So there's always gonna be something to do. When you own a home, it's not like the work's ever done. I mean, like even if you get everything organized exactly how you want it to, where it's like that bureau, That's where that bureau is going to be until this place burns down, or until we move, because that is the place for the bureau. Like, even if we got everything literally where we wanted it to, I mean, there's going to be you know a, a thing to replace, or something to you know upgrade, or it's like a brush to clear, because we live near the woods, so it's that the woods are always constantly trying to reclaim the territory, and it's like, no, we want more yards, so we're always trying to keep that stuff back. So you never run out of stuff that you need to do at in a house. So it's just nice to be at a point where it's like, okay, we kind of really did a good run for those weekends. Let's just kind of have this weekend be an F off weekend, and that was very pleasant. So, and then we still end up getting a visitor. So what has been interesting is the house next to us is not technically lived in 24/7 by the same person. So the very awesome neighbor who previously owned it and did a lot of renovation. He was a very handy man. He made the entire living room, kitchen area. And the interior is just like all hardwood, like from floor to ceiling. It looks like a cabin inside. He has a hot tub outside, covered in stuff. So like you can you know be in the hot tub outside and stuff. Like he did all sorts of stuff to it. And he was a really great neighbor. It was really fun having him as a neighbor. So he left, and then it gets bought up by this very nice woman, and she, I guess for whatever reason, decided. I guess that's kind of her business is flipping houses. So I think that she was just like, "Oh, it's a good property, good price," and then she bought it. Was like, you know what? Maybe I'll try and flip it. And the pandemic hit, so she was like, "Well, now I'm not gonna flip it. I'm gonna sit on it." And I think by now the prices of everything are probably going up, so she's probably ready to put it back on the market again. But she's been renting it out in the meantime. So besides having her over one, well, actually we went to her, but besides hanging out with her, um, at one point, you know, uh, there's been two other neighbors that we've had, and the previous ones were kind of weird. You know, they weren't mean. They were just a little off. It was weird. It was almost like they kept on ramping up to a sales pitch that never happened. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like they kept on doing stuff where it's just like, oh, check out this gin, it's local. We only do local stuff, and making a big deal out of it. And it was almost like, are you gonna try and sell us an MLM, or what's going on here? But so we just got a kind of a weird vibe. But they're fine people. Anytime they were being too loud in the hot tub, and it got too late at night, I'd go over and ask them to turn it down, and they would. Which is all you can ask for in a neighbor is them not to come over and break into your place, and if they're being too loud, to turn it down without the cops having to get involved. That's all you can ask. So anyway, there's now a new neighbor. She came over. She was very pleasant. We talked, we drank, we had fun. Um, and so that's been kind of neat, being able to have kind of like a rotating, you know, uh, group of characters in that household. So that was another thing that happened. We get to meet her. That was really nice. Something I intended to do anyway because I felt really bad. I think literally the first weekend that she was there was the same weekend that Josh was over. So I felt like we were being a little loud, a little late into the night, and I felt bad that I hadn't previously gone over there saying, "Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. We never have parties, but if we ever do and we're too loud, here's our number to give us a call so that we don't have to get the cops involved. We'll be polite and we'll turn it down." So we never did that, but she kind of did it for us anyway. So God, we end up having so much fun. I hope that at least my girl and her exchange numbers, that we have that done now. But anyway, so yeah, the more I think about it, the more actually it was a pretty decently full weekend. I was so upset though. Oh my God. So I was so looking forward to having the Mexican for lunch, and then I realized that instead I grabbed the oldest thing in the fridge, which is what I should have done. And I'm not sad that I did, but it was so weird. It was like one of those things like where you're working, 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 and all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to put the food in the crock pot. Oh crap, I didn't. I have that rice dish, the non-Mexican rice dish that I grabbed instead of the actual Mexican food leftovers, which is fine. And now I still have something to look forward to. And honestly, it being salty enough, I probably should space the eating it, out. I should space it out a little bit, but it was just still one of those funny things when if you get distracted. and your brain thinks one thing. Kind of like when you forget what day of the week it is. Where you're just like, oh crap, no, it's Wednesday, not Tuesday. What the heck did I do Tuesday? Oh yeah, okay. When you have like that brain fart. So I kind of had that with lunch. Um, and I guess that's good news. I mean, if literally, oh, my dog sprained her tail. I brought the wrong lunch and forgot to heat it. If these are the worst things that are happening in my life, then I mean, that's aces. Like that. I'm a man of simple pleasures. I need things to not be going god awful for me. I don't need them to be going amazingly well. If they go amazingly well, even better. I mean, when I was a kid, I I mean, it's pretty common nowadays, and I think people have a better way of putting it. But when I was a kid, I always used to think that being a pessimist was the true optimism, because if you always expect things to be crappy, and they are, well, then you at least get to say, I told you so to the world. And then if things aren't crappy, if they actually go good, then you get to be pleasantly surprised. And it made sense in my head for so long that I was just like, I tried to make it a stand up routine. I tried to do a lot with it, but it never really panned out. And now I realize, because at the end of the day, if you're negative all the time, regardless what the outcome is, if you get to say, I told you so, or if you get to be pleasantly surprised, the overall takeaway is that you're negative all the time. Like, and that's not a way to be. So I try to appreciate the little things. It's hard to do in the moment. It's hard to do on a regular basis unless you've gone through a bad spell of something crappy happening to you, and you know, just a little something as simple as being able to have a friend come visit. Something as simple as being able to have a random conversation with a stranger about dogs. Something as simple as a neighbor coming over on a whim just to get to know us and say, "Hey, I'm welcoming myself to the neighborhood." Um, all those little things that I was able to do made it for an amazing weekend. Like we didn't have to, you know, um, visit Japan in order to have a great time. Like, and I would like to visit Japan at one point, but I'm also glad that, like I told Josh when he came over, it's just like, dude, you're the kind of guy I can get stuck in an elevator with, and basically it's just like, all right, more time to talk, and maybe you make fun of, come up with a hilarious joke about the situation that we're in. So it's the same thing with my girl. It's just like, we don't have to have something crazy going on in order to appreciate each other's company. Yes, we do watch a lot of TV. What couple this generation, doesn't? But we don't have to have other noises going on so that we don't have to talk to each other. We can easily have the TV off, be out on the porch playing cribbage, and just having a grand old time with each other, and that's great. That's took a while for me to, again, I say this all the time, but anybody that knew me in my 20s, I'm sorry. I apologize. I mean, if you want me to do this 12-step program of forgiveness, then I will. But, I kind of get it now, like where, that whole turning 30 thing, it wasn't the best. I actually had more of a freak out, midlife kind of crisis thing at 31 for some reason instead of 30. Because when I did 30, there was just so much like build up where it's just like, oh my God, your 20s are over. Oh my God, your 20s are over. And when I turned 30, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot from all my previous birthdays that it's not like you feel any different. I still felt 29, like just the number changed. So I kind of like, didn't have my freak out. And then when I was 31, for some reason, I was just like, oh my God, I'm in my 30s. It made it more official. Kind of like how, like, technically 2001 is the new century, instead of 2000. If that makes any sense. So I had a weird thing at 31, but it's like, I saw this study. It was probably in Reader's Digest, so this is how far back I read it, back when I was living with my dad, and I read the Reader's Digest, on the toilet on a regular basis, which, it's kind of gross now when you think about it, because that's probably picking up a lot of poop articles. Anyway, let's not get gross. Let's not get off topic. So I read somewhere in, Reader's Digest something about like, you know, a bunch of elderly people were polled, and they were asked, like so, like let's say like a bunch of 80-year-olds were polled, and they were asked, what are the best years of your life? In the tens, and so they would be like, well, you know, definitely, in descending order of awesomeness, it would definitely go 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, and I was just like, that can't possibly be true. You're old, you hurt, you know what I mean? Like, if you fall, you break a hip. Every week you hear about another one of your friends dying. You go to more funerals and parties now. Like, how could your 80s possibly be better? And it's just like now as I get older, I realize, oh well, as long as you don't have too much crazy mental stuff going on. I mean, everybody's entitled to a little bit. I mean, I'm not even I'm not even close to where I'd like to be, but I'm working on it. And I realize as I work on it and I make little mini victories, it makes like I said, the other stuff a little easier to appreciate. You're gonna have some relapses, but as long as you keep working on it, they should hopefully get fewer and further between. And I realized, oh yeah, because by the time they were 80, they had all the crap that they had still hadn't figured out by 70 figured out. When they were 70, they had all the crap they still hadn't figured out by 60 figured. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're good about just like, oh okay, well, I was 50 and I was still having a bit of an issue with drinking, or it's like I was 50 and I still had a bit of an issue with maintaining my friendships and being the one to reach out and call instead of being the one that always had to get called. Like it made sense to me where I was just like, yeah, the body's failing, but I mean, even in in my late 30s, I'm already feeling like back issues. Like I was just like, oh, like I obviously can't complain because I don't need to like have pills on the side of the bed, take them, and then wait in bed for a couple hours before I can get up. I know there's people that are that bad. And I know that anybody that's older than me is just like, oh, you don't even know yet, so shut up. But, I'm getting my first little tastes, my first little taste of like, oh, you're not immortal. It's slowly going to get worse. You're going to need to start maintaining. Um, so, I mean, once you get over that inevitable fact, I'm sure that like by the time you're 80, it's just like, yeah, this is everyday sort of life. I'm going to maintain as much as I can maintain. And whatever I can't, just, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, I guess is how the saying goes. So, I realized, oh yeah, because yeah, they're 80, they have it figured out. So it kind of gave me some hope for the future. I used to always be scared about growing old. When I was really young and I was always writing in a notebook because I thought I was going to be a stand-up comic, I would make so many old people jokes that when I look back now, I was just like, none of these are actually funny. They're just angry rants at old people that didn't deserve it. You know what I mean? Like I used to have this thing about, you know, um, like when you go to a supermarket and old people always do this thing where they grab their cart, they're slowly going through the doors, and so you have to wait behind them, and they get through the door, and then you're still behind them, and then they get through the other door, because it's usually a vestibule, so it's usually like an airlock system, so, if you weren't able to scoot around them because there were people coming the other way, you're behind them for two full door openings. They're walking slow, they're walking at like a quarter of the speed that you want to, and then when they finally get inside the second door, and you would just almost be able to get around them. That's when they stop and start drinking it all in and deciding which direction they're going to head in. And you're just like, oh my God, if you stopped like 2 more feet out, I'd have been able to get around you. And instead, you're costing me precious seconds of my life that I'm never going to get back. And so when I was, young, the joke, if you could even call it that, was like, how am I the one in a rush? Like, you got so much less time than I have. Like, this might be your last shopping visit ever. So, like, don't you want to, like, get it over with and, go back about your day? And now I realize that old fucker probably knew, saw, and felt and sensed my frustration and paused intentionally because he was just like, oh, you young whippersnapper, you have no idea. Like, honestly, A, you're not this rushed. If you are, then that's your fault for not taking more time. B, I mean, I'm probably going to do it too. I'm probably just going to get in the way and upset so many young people when I'm older because I see them just rush, rush, rush. I'm so much more important than you, old man. You're about to die. Make way so that I can, take over the planet. It's probably going to be my favorite thing in the world to grab a cart, and even though I could walk twice as fast as I do, to slowly creep through the vestibule, just feeling the heat behind me of the young person being like, "Whoa, you son of a! Oh, if you just weren't in the middle of the friggin' if you just off to the side, I could just get around you," and just like chuckling to myself. I mean, I get it, I get it now, and that's why I'm so glad that at least I hope. I hope that we're finally starting to get a little bit out of the cancel culture that we've been in, especially when it comes to comedians. Um, for a joke. I want to specify that, not for their actions. Now, if a comedian is accused of rape, they're a piece of shit. They should never be allowed to perform again ever. Yada yada yada. All right. If a comedian makes a joke and it's either falls flat, it's in poor taste, or even worse, gets taken out of context, I think it's atrocious that anything should happen to them, that they should be forced to apologize. Now, if they look back and were like, wow, okay, I get it. I dead named a trans person before I even knew that that was a fucking thing. I will go ahead and jump on Twitter or whatever and apologize because I genuinely am sorry. You were offended. That was never my intent. I didn't even know that that was a transgression. I will do better in the future. That apology, that kind of an apology is okay. The apology of, hey, this person printed your joke in a news piece completely out of context to be clickbait, to get a rise, public outcry made the person feel like they needed to apologize in order to keep selling tickets. That I don't care for. Especially because being a comedian, it's one of the hardest things because the entire point of being a comedian, the only way a joke works is if you scuff at the line. There's always a line. It's always blurry. It's never clearly defined exactly where too far is. Sometimes that's even the point. And so if you scuff at the line often enough, eventually your toe's going to dip over occasionally. That should never be the end of the world for you. It's a thankless, horrible in practice job to do. Like the hours kind of suck. The sheer amount you have to go through before you are well known enough to even be able to have that be your only job. And now you have people, um, yeah. I don't know. We're closing in on the gap here for the episode, and I hate ending on rants. I always go on rants, and it's just like, well, I do try and share the pleasant stuff as well. There's stuff that bothers me also, and I'm sure that some of you just don't want to hear me bitch at the blue, circle. Others are probably like, man, I feel that too, and maybe there's just a little bit of solace in hearing somebody else bitch about it. And if I had any interesting points to make, maybe that would be something that could help, where it's just like, I never actually thought of it like that. But instead, I usually just go on a rant until I catch myself being like, it's getting negative with only 10 minutes to go, so let's not do that. I don't know if I'm going to fill a full 10 minutes. I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to be good about wrapping up the rants. If it's not going to be a funny rant, then, how about you just, wrap it up. You play that music for the award ceremony. And, yeah, sorry, I am sweating. I normally would have a fan full blast on me at the moment, but instead, in order for you to be able to hear me, I have it on low, and the door open, and then I realize as cars are going by, is that better? Like, couldn't I just have the fan a little higher, have the door all the way closed, and then there's just a little bit of constant background noise instead of having or the occasional. That is one nice thing I gotta say. So I it's already been done to death, so I'm just gonna be very brief. But there are some motorcycles out there that are loud to the point of probably um, hurting your eardrums loud. Like, I know roughly around how many decibels your ear can safely listen to. I know because I've gone past that often enough that I have tinnitus. Many of us do. Tinnitus is not fun. I got to tell you, it makes watching the scenes in Baby Driver when he doesn't have the music playing kind of a nightmare to listen to because it has that which we all have to live with, and it sucks, and it is what it is. If your brain's stupid, it's making something when. Anyway, I know that there are some motorcycles that are beyond safe levels for hearing, and that's so unnecessary. All it's doing is telling all the people around you that you probably have a small peepee. And yeah, I know that bikes are by nature louder than cars because it doesn't have as much of the muffler system to go through, and that's fine. And I actually enjoy the sound of a good bike, and a little rum rum is awesome. When it's obvious that it's been like modified to the point of being, anyway, this is actually a positive thing, is what I'm saying, is that I do appreciate that most of the people that live on my road that do have motorcycles, they're at a reasonable volume. So yes, it's a little louder when they go by when I'm trying to do a podcast, say, but I don't feel like if I sit on the porch and they go by often enough that my tinnitus is going to get worse. And that's all, you know. I get, you know, like muscle cars and just, you know, like like, you know, it's something that is so just somehow, you know, built into us that even these electric cars that technically don't make a noise, almost all of them have that option where you can make engine noise because it's like, you know, that's kind of half the fun of the car. So I get it. I get, you know, that throttle sound, the vibration between your legs. I get all of it. But when it gets to the point of I'd be worried for my kid, you know, if and when I have a kid, that I'd be worried for the kid to be playing around, you know, in the yard with enough number of those going by where it's just like, great, now my kid needs a hearing aid, you know, or, you know, or something. Or my kid goes up with tinnitus and it's just like, what? But you would never, you know, were in construction or worked around power tools or weapons, you know, going off. Like any of the number of reasons why you might, you know, like, you know, the place I work has, you know, like the shop floor where, you know, there's like, you know, psst, air and friggin' like big loud, you know, machining, you know, noises. So, you know, hearing protection, you know, is definitely recommended, and I wear it, obviously. Um, but yeah, to think that, you know, my kid might need to have earplugs in, you know, by the road just because of, you know, some Yahoo. That's where it's getting a little too far. I think that the South Park episode said more than I ever could say on the subject, but I guess the odds of any neighbors watching, you know, maybe besides Tim down the street, but the odds of any neighbors watching are slim to none. But just if you are out there, if you recognize me from the porch, hey, I appreciate it. Nice looking bike. Nice old car, by the way. I'm not an old car guy enough to know, but one neighbor has one of those really old timey, you know, cars. You know, matte black. Um, you know, looks like it's a few generations away from being hand cranked. You know, and he uses it as his personal car. The guy drives it on a fairly regular basis. I'm pretty sure that he just puts it up for the winter, but then all the rest of the time, spring, summer, fall, I'm pretty sure he uses that as his actual grocery getter. And you know what? It's nice to see. I hate to see an older car getting abused, but I do love to see an older car getting used. If that makes any sense. There's a big distinction. There's one where it's a barn car where it literally has only seen like, you know, maybe 10,000 miles total, and it's from the 60s. You know, that almost seems like a crime. I mean, yeah, that's great. You have a well preserved car, but at the same time, it's like that car hasn't been able to car for most of its life, man. I mean, that's why it was built. You know, like, oh, what's that scene in Oh, I'm a movie trivia guy and I'm blanking, but it's that movie with all the old pilots. They have to go to space because there's this old satellite that's broken down, and they know the technology. So, um, you know, that it's like what, you know, Tommy Lee Jones, and man, it's been a long time since I watched it, but I just remember that one of the characters was, you know, admiring was it B-51, one of the stealth bombers, and so B-52 maybe, I think. I want to say it was the B-52. Was it the SR? No. Was it the SR-70? No, I think it was the SR. SR-71? God, I'm bad at this. Anyway, can't remember the actors. I can't remember the name of the movie, but I think I might have nailed down the plane. And it's funny because I'm as bad of a plane guy as I'm a car guy, but that's a pretty unique plane. I mean, let's be honest. But anyway, it's the stealth plane. It's the one that's made to go really fast, you know, really high, undetectable radar. Anyway, so he's talking about the plane as you're taking off and getting up to cruising speed. It's like this rattly trap. It's like, you know, like you know, like it's leaky. It's, you know, all that stuff. But then once you get up to speed, you know, that's when it smooths out. All the stuff seals up. It's like it was made to, and it wants to go fast. I'm putting a personality on an inanimate object, but at the same time, I'm not, because technically, the heart and soul of whoever designed and built it is in there. And obviously, if they built it for speed, it's going to work best at top speed if they did it right. So I kind of feel like, you know, a car doesn't have a soul, doesn't have a personality, but if it did, it would want to be driven. It would want to be going places. It might want to stay in the garage if it's a snowstorm or like a really miserable like rainy day where it's just like, oh, this is going to get mud in the tires. But I feel like, for it to just be sitting there rusting is a crime to it and yourself. So shout out to my neighborhood motorcyclists, and shout out to old car guy. There's almost always one in every neighborhood. I love seeing him, driving it. I swear to God, that's him right now. That's so funny. I mean, what better note to end on than that? I hope you heard that in the background. I recognize the engine sound. It's very distinctive. The older engines definitely have a distinctive noise. But I swear to God, as I was singing his praises, I was like, what are the odds that he drives by right now? Because, like I told you, I wasn't lying. He takes it out and about on the town. And that was him driving by. That's chef's kiss for an ending of the podcast. That was hilarious. So, shout out to that guy. It's so funny that I'm just oohing and ahhing over planes and cars right now. I'm kind of not really that kind of guy. But I guess there's a little bit of it in me because I'm talking about SR-71s, and now I got to go and figure out what friggin' model that is because that is just too funny. I hope that when I see you again next week, I'll have an update because, I mean, come on. Signing off, I appreciate you.